It is the tail end of September now. It's time to get the potatoes out of the ground. I want to get them up so that I can get a winter rye cover crop going here as we proceed into the fall and get that established. We do have a new tool here on the property for digging potatoes this year. In the past, I've done it all by hand with a shovel. Last year, I surrendered and started using the tractor bucket to kind of scoop and then flip the soil to get the potatoes out. It was still pretty laborious because you got to move over and just do 5-foot chunks at a time. So I broke down and got a middle buster. So here it is. This is the Homestead Implements Independent Series middle buster. I ordered this at the beginning of July. It was $540 at the time. Now I looked at the price and I believe it's like $760 or something like that. So the price went up. I went with this one because it's quite a bit heavier than what's available from Tractor Supply. The other thing is Tractor Supply didn't have any middle busters in stock, so I was going to have to order and wait. So I figured I would just order this direct from the manufacturer. You could choose your color. I chose blue, but I honestly thought about just getting black. It took about 8 weeks to arrive right at the door. Now this came fully assembled on a pallet, weighs 82 pounds or so, so it's a little bit unwieldy putting it on the tractor because there's nothing to hold it except you. I do like how stout this is. Solid, almost 3/4 inch thick steel here, and a lot of the weight is carried in this structure. Did come with the top pin and everything all set up, so didn't have to assemble anything. Down here, I do like that instead of this being welded, it's a bolted connection. So if it did shear away, you could replace the bolts and ultimately fix this. And obviously it's a replaceable plowshare down here at the bottom. I did test out this middle buster a week ago. I did a couple passes through the garden just to see how it would behave, how it would respond. And then I did do 1 row of potatoes last week. It was very dry. We hadn't had any rain for quite a while. Things are a little bit different now. We got some good rain here just a couple of days ago, so conditions are different. I'm gonna have to see how this works. I'm still getting a little bit used to it in terms of where I want that 3-point set, how I want the top link set. But it did work very well for that first row, and the potatoes basically ended up right in the furrow behind the tractor. So we'll see what we get today. One last thing before I hop on the tractor to run this. This is my shorter top link. It's not my usual top link. And the reason I'm using that is to pull this in at the top more, to kind of angle this down so that it gets a little bit more dig and a little bit more bite. If the top link were longer, what would happen is this would come up flatter, and so it wouldn't tend to dig as much. This is an adjustment that I'm still fiddling with, but it seems like the shorter link is the way to go. As we look at the potato plot, you can see the crabgrass kind of took over. Here is where cover crop was, and the crabgrass had actually grown up in that too in the dry spell we had in the summer. So I ended up hitting this with the rotary cutter, knocking it down, and then going over it with the tiller just to do a shallow till to turn things in. And then here's where I tested that middle buster a week ago. So this is all gonna get planted with winter rye. So I seem to be bunching up the root mass from the crabgrass. I'm not having quite the success in having this plow out that I did a week ago. So I'm gonna try and back up and knock this off and see if I can get things reset now that I'm past the majority of the crabgrass. So most of the crabgrass is back over here. It's a lot clearer in terms of the weeds up this way. Well, you can see what happened is I got a little bit off the track of this row, which is more on the right side of that furrow. So there's potatoes there. I think what I'll do is I'll get those out of there, and I might try and run back and see if I can hit the row a little bit better on a second pass. So a surprising number of additional potatoes came out. What I'm finding is there's just enough play on my 3-point side to side that middle buster can drift a little bit. And so even still up there, it drifted out of where the row is, but we got quite a few more potatoes here. So I'll pick these up, and I don't know if I'm gonna hit this by hand with a shovel or if I try and make one more pass at that. You can see where it dove off right there. So I actually made 2 more passes, popped out quite a few more, and I did end up coming through this last area with the shovel to knock over the side of the road to actually get the potatoes out. Here's one thing that frustrates me greatly. You see that? The roots from this weed are right through that potato. We get some damage and losses due to those. I mean, I'll still use that potato, but you end up having to cut around that. There, just pick them out, and I'll knock this soil around, and we'll see if there's more. Doesn't look like there's more on this side. Aha! So again, with this row, started really well, and I think the root mass of some of this crabgrass started to push the middle buster around. And once you get off track, you know, the row of potatoes is actually down that right side there. But once that plow slings off track, it's really hard to get it back in. With the drier soil, I wasn't really having so much issue like this, so I think working in really dry conditions actually makes this easier, and the potatoes pop out easier because the soil's not clumping up. So we have 3 more rows left to get out, all Kennebecks. I'm thinking of being a little bit less diligent on this, given the yield that we've already got out of the other rows so far, and possibly just running down, grabbing what is accessible, and not worrying about kind of knocking the sides or picking over the sides with a shovel just to see if there's any that kind of got buried in the soil that's thrown up on the sides, because we definitely have plenty of potatoes. So I'm gonna see about busting out more of these rows and just picking it up. Crabgrass are a real problem. All right, so here's what we got out of one 100-foot row of Eva. 1, 2, 3. Then for Purple Viking, we have the box on the bottom, that wooden crate, this one, and the bucket. And that was a row and a quarter or so. And then for Kennebec, we have 1, 2, 3 large boxes here. So quite a bit of yield. There were 3.5 rows or so of the Kennebecs, and I got lazy on digging them, so I'm sure I'm leaving some behind. So takeaways from digging the potatoes with the middle buster. Number 1, it is a lot easier. Number 2, it works best when the soil is drier so that the potatoes kind of fall out loose and fall right back into the furrow behind you instead of there being clumps and things kind of getting pushed aside. Number 3, the roots from the weeds, especially the crabgrass root clusters, really do make it harder to flip the soil and flip the potatoes out because those roots are kind of binding everything together. So unfortunately, it's just kind of something I have to live with. I'm not going to be coming out here to pull all the weeds, especially the crabgrass, and I'm not going to be spraying for them. So that's unfortunate, but any practices that I can do to keep those weeds down, I definitely want to do the best I can in that regard to make this easier. And maybe the answer is just planting the potatoes later or harvesting much earlier, because these have been sitting in the ground ready to go for quite some time, and so those weeds had time to grow and develop and do all of that after the potatoes were pretty much done. So something to think about, maybe staggering the crop, harvesting sooner could help. That sun's getting low. I'm going to wrap this video up here. I got to get these potatoes into the barn, get them spread out so they can cure and get ready to go into storage.